Hi, I'm Melinda Marks, Senior Analyst at Enterprise Strategy Group, and I'm here with Sandy Bird, CTO and co-founder for Sonrai. In my coverage area of cloud and application security, I'm seeing how organizations struggle managing cloud security risk. My study on cloud entitlements and cloud security posture showed that although most organizations say they have a robust solution in place, only 6% did not experience cybersecurity incidents over the past 12 months, and the highest percentages were related to access and permissions issues. Also, 99% of organizations that experienced a cybersecurity incident recognize that credentials played a key role in exposing their cloud environment, with over half recognizing they play a central role. So this is an area where solutions such as CSPM and those that focus on vulnerabilities are lacking. Sonrai Security offers a platform with an identity-first approach to cloud security. Can you describe how it works?
Thanks. It's kind of interesting looking at your stats. You spend time thinking about, misconfigurations and vulnerabilities and how that's the common way that we test apps. We actually think that in cloud, it's kind of interesting that the environments get mixed. So you have development zones, innovation zones, and then really sensitive production zones in the same areas almost. And so because of that, identity becomes this way that you can control any of those environments. However, because you have those critical assets sitting in there, and once the attacker gets in, they can use these identities to move between them, this kind of classic testing of CSPM, we'll call it the misconfiguration, the vulnerabilities, isn't really enough. And again, looking at those kind of top stats that you have, it's clear that identities are used for this lateral movement between zones. And when that happens, obviously, the attacker can get too much access. So we spend a lot of time contextualizing those teams, understanding where their critical workloads are, and kind of looking at it in an inside-out way. Where's the most critical resources? What are the attack paths to it? That's how you prioritize your fixes.
Scale and complexity is an issue here too. Managing access and permissions for cloud-native applications is a top challenge. 73% of organizations say overly permissive service accounts introduce security and compliance risk. In addition, 65% are concerned about software developers with highly permissive service accounts, making them susceptible to credential theft attacks. How does Sonrai help both in reducing the attack surface area and in protecting the running applications?
It's interesting, again, when you talk about this and we talk about these identities and these actors that are in these accounts, we all want least privilege, but trying to do least privilege for every one of these identities is almost impossible. If you have 1,000 cloud accounts and each one of them has 200 or 300 identities in there and you end up with hundreds of thousands of identities, you're not going to be able to do least privilege on everything. However, by using this concept of zones where we can say, these are the critical assets, these are the permissions to those, and these are experimental zones where you can have more freedom, we can actually create a way to prioritize reducing the risk for the things that really matter while allowing the innovations to still happen in those development zones and those innovation zones. One of the things that Sonrai does so well is we build out these attack paths by focusing on where those critical resources are, the data that's going to be abused by the attacker in one way or the other, the critical application that they're going to breach to remove things from or cause malicious actions in. And by doing that, we can actually rewind all of the possible attack paths to that and then prioritize those are the things. The most important thing is that the streams don't cross, right? You can't have an overly permissive development zone, which has the ability to get into a highly sensitive production zone and do things to it. Sonrai has the ability to lock those down in a way that effectively removes anybody that gets into the environment, malicious or not, from getting access to that sensitive data, as well as deal with things like separation of duties issues that you probably have in your environment and other kind of least privilege scenarios to really reduce that footprint.
That's great. You also have an easy way to get started. Can you tell us about that?
We actually have a way at Sonrai to do a really high value, low friction way to get started. So as opposed to having to deploy one of these solutions and run it for years and make everything least privilege, we can do what's called a cloud identity diagnostic. We inventory all the identities, understand all of their entitlements and permissions, calculate all of those possible attack paths, where, you could have risk in these environments, calculate what least privilege would look like, and give that to you in a way where you can prioritize it. You can understand the possible ways to remediate it and actually, probably after that one diagnostic, end up with enough work to do for a few sprints to actually clean things up.
That's great. Sandy, thanks so much for joining me today. For those watching, visit the link on the screen. There's an easy way to get started, and you can get more resources and great information on working with Sonrai.